if I would be interested in playing Eliza Doolittle. Then I guess my career took off from there.
Julie Andrews had a voice that was clear as glass and warm as a lullaby. From the moment she sang about the hills being alive in that beautiful Austrian countryside, the whole world stopped to listen. Her singing wasn't just technically perfect. It was like she was building emotions and creating entire worlds with her voice. Whether she was playing Mary Poppins, Maria von Trapp, or Queen Clarice Rinaldi, Julie didn't just act these parts. She became the very idea of kindness, strength, and grace under pressure. For many generations, she was more than just an actress or singer. She was like a guiding star, especially during times when the world felt uncertain and scary. For over 70 years, she sang, she spoke, and she showed up for people. Whether she was a magical nanny floating in on the east wind or a governess spinning around in mountain fields, Julie didn't just entertain people. She made them feel safe and hopeful again. There was something special about her that made people believe in magic again. She helped them believe in basic human decency and in the idea that music could fix things that seemed broken in the world. Recently, something very touching and final has come to light. A letter was found, written quietly by Julie, never meant for cameras or newspaper headlines. It was discovered tucked away among her personal belongings and has been shared with the same care someone would use when opening a precious family treasure. The letter isn't grand or dramatic. It's graceful, thoughtful, and gently beautiful in every way, just like Julie herself. Since people learned what the letter said, fans all around the world have stopped to think. They're not just looking back at her career, but remembering that special feeling of warmth she gave them, that steady presence, that beautiful voice. Even though her physical voice has left this world, her words continue to echo like one final performance. But this time it's not from a stage or a movie screen. It's straight from her heart. And like all the best roles she ever played, it's honest. It will last forever, and no one will ever forget it. Julie Andrews was born Julia Elizabeth Wells on October 1, 1935, in Walton-on-Thames, a quiet English town still dealing with the effects of war. Her childhood wasn't golden or perfect. It was gray, complicated, and often very difficult. Her parents separated when she was young, and she was thrown into a world of uncertainty, far from the polished and peaceful image she would later show the world. But even in all that uncertainty, there was always music. Her stepfather, who was a performer, noticed that Julie had an unusual gift for singing. Her voice was so pure and powerful that by the time she was barely a teenager, it was obvious she wasn't just talented. She was truly exceptional. When she was only 13 years old, she performed for King George VI at a Royal Command performance, becoming the youngest person ever to perform alone at such an event. While most girls her age were still figuring out who they were, Julie was already carrying the heavy weight of being perfect and living up to everyone's expectations. She didn't really choose to be in the spotlight seemed to choose her. Her voice, which was sharp, angelic, and impossibly controlled, became her way out of a difficult life and into history books. But behind all the applause was enormous pressure. She was a child who was raised by performing rather than playing. She learned very early how to smile even when she was exhausted, and how to stand tall even when her life away from the stage felt uncertain. Still, there was something bright and strong about her, a kind of strength that didn't need to shout or show off. Her rise to becoming famous wasn't fast or easy. She earned it through years of working on stage, training her voice, and showing incredible determination. She wasn't given anything for free. She built everything herself. So when Hollywood finally came calling, it wasn't just to hire her for a movie. It was because they needed to catch up to what she had already achieved. When Julie Andrews came to Hollywood, she brought more than just a beautiful voice. She brought a quiet kind of power. She wasn't loud or pushy because she didn't need to be. She had already proven herself on the stages of London and Broadway, most famously playing Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady. But when they made the movie version, the role went to Audrey Hepburn instead. Julie, gracious as always, said nothing about this disappointment, but people in the movie industry noticed, and so did Walt Disney. In 1964, she made her first movie as Mary Poppins, part magic, part mischief, and completely unforgettable. With a twinkle in her eye and a voice like sunlight, Julie didn't just play the role, she became Mary Poppins. She won an Academy Award, but more importantly, she won the hearts of families everywhere. Families sang along with her songs, and parents found themselves crying during the movie. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was comfort. It felt like home. A year later, she came back as Maria von Trapp in The Sound of Music. She was playing another nanny, another governess, but again Julie gave the character more than just charm. She gave her a soul. Songs like Do Re Mi, My Favorite Things, and Edelweiss weren't just songs anymore. They became like family treasures passed down from one generation to the next. What made her special and timeless wasn't that she played fantasy characters. It was that she brought truth to them. She played women who took care of others, who rebelled gently against unfairness, and who believed in something better. She made kindness seem powerful and made sincerity unforgettable. In a time when movies were all about big spectacles, she gave audiences something real and genuine. She became a household name, but more than that, she became a presence that people returned to when they needed to feel grounded and stable. While fame swirled all around her, Julie never lost her center or forgot who she was. She made everything look effortless, even when it wasn't easy at all. Behind the scenes, she stayed quiet and thoughtful. She let her work speak for itself, and it spoke in beautiful symphonies. For most of her life, Julie Andrews' voice had been like her compass. It carried her from war-torn England to the world's most glittering stages, lifted her into stardom, and wrapped itself around generations of people like a warm, familiar blanket. But in 1997, everything changed in a heartbreaking way. What was supposed to be a simple surgery to remove harmless growths on her vocal cords left her voice permanently damaged. The beautiful soprano voice that once soared with effortless beauty was gone, suddenly and without any warning. For the public, this was almost unthinkable. Julie Andrews, without her singing voice, felt like an important chapter had closed too soon. Fans grieved this loss, not just because it meant no more singing roles in the future, but because of what that voice had meant to them. It had carried lullabies, precious memories, and emotions that people didn't even know they needed to feel until she sang them. But Julie didn't fall apart or become bitter about what happened. She didn't hide away from the world. She did what she had always done throughout her life. She adapted with grace. With the same quiet strength that had carried her through a difficult childhood and a demanding career, she found another way to communicate with people. She turned to writing, memoirs, children's books, and thoughtful reflections, many of them created together with her daughter Emma Walton Hamilton. In doing this, she gave families a new way to connect with her, not through songs, but through stories. Her written words, like her voice before them, were gentle, wise, and touched with playfulness. She also lent her presence to work behind the scenes, narrating and mentoring others, and bringing heart to animated characters in movies like Shrek and Despicable Me. Even without her full singing range, she still found ways to be heard, not with volume, but with meaning and purpose. Julie once said she didn't want to be remembered as the voice that was lost, but as the spirit that remained. And that's exactly what happened. In every story she told and every room she entered, her presence was unmistakable, kind, dignified, and unshaken. She had lost the instrument that made her famous, but not the essence that made her beloved by so many people. Julie Andrews never chased after the spotlight, even when she was at the height of her fame. There was always something inward and private about her, an elegance that didn't demand to be noticed, but somehow made everything around it brighter. When the curtain fell and the cameras stopped rolling, she quietly stepped into other kinds of roles: humanitarian, author, mother, and guide. She spent decades supporting causes that were close to her heart, not to get headlines, but because she genuinely wanted to help. She became a passionate advocate for children's literacy, helping to start the Julie Andrews Collection, to publish stories that would spark imagination and compassion in young readers. She believed that storytelling was a form of healing and that books, like songs, had the power to shape people's lives. For countless young readers, her voice lived on not in show tunes, but in pages filled with warmth and wonder. She supported arts education, gave her time to humanitarian work, and encouraged fellow artists through life's difficult moments. She didn't make grand speeches or congratulate herself publicly. She just took quiet action and showed up when people needed her. She found humor in hardship and grace in grief. In interviews and memoirs, she spoke honestly about her challenges, her childhood, losing her voice, her doubts, with a frankness that made people lean in closer. Not because she seemed untouchable, but because she seemed real and relatable. Her family was the center of her world. Her late husband, director Blake Edwards, was her creative partner and closest companion. Together, they navigated Hollywood with mutual respect and a shared sense of purpose. She raised children and grandchildren with the same care she brought to her acting roles, with gentleness and fierce loyalty. Over time, Julie Andrews became more than just a performer. She became a kind of moral compass, a quiet reminder that real grace doesn't shout or demand attention. It just endures. Recently, in the quiet she left behind, something special has surfaced. Something handwritten, intimate and final. A letter that feels less like a goodbye and more like a last, warm embrace. The letter wasn't announced or broadcast to the world. It was discovered quietly and carefully among a collection of well-worn journals and keepsakes, tucked inside a linen envelope with edges softened by time. The handwriting was unmistakable, elegant, deliberate, and unmistakably Julie's. It was a final letter, not to the entire world, but to the people who had walked beside her through music, through memories, and through every role that had stitched her into the hearts of generations. The letter isn't long and doesn't try to impress anyone. It simply speaks softly, like everything she ever did, with sincerity and grace. If you're reading this, it begins, then perhaps the music has grown quiet, but I hope it hasn't stopped. There's no sadness in her tone, only warmth, reflection, and a quiet gratitude that seems to wrap around every sentence like a familiar melody. She thanks her family with understated affection, calling her children the truest part of my legacy. She remembers Blake, her late husband, as the laughter I still hear when the room goes still. And she writes about her fans not as strangers, but as fellow travelers. To those who grew up with me, who grew old with me, who played my songs when the world felt heavy. I saw you, I felt you, I never once sang alone. There are moments of humor too, light touches that could only come from her. If anyone insists on making a statue, at least let the pigeons land politely, she jokes. Better yet, plant a garden instead. But beneath the wit is something deeper, a kind of knowing, a letting go that feels more like passing a torch to others than saying farewell. If you find silence where my songs used to be, she writes, fill it with your own. Sing for someone who needs to be reminded that they're not alone. That's what I always tried to do. And then, as gently as she entered our lives, she brings the letter to a close. You've given me more than I ever dreamed. If I've given you even a fraction in return, then my voice was never truly lost. Keep something beautiful going, always. Julie Andrews didn't just leave behind movie roles and songs. She left behind reminders that kindness can be powerful, that grace can outlast fame, and that art, when made with sincerity, doesn't fade with time. It settles into people's hearts and stays there. She was never chasing after what was popular or trendy, and yet she never lost her relevance. That's because her legacy was never tied to trends. It was tied to truth. She gave the world characters to believe in, but more than that, she gave the world reasons to believe in goodness again. Children danced to her songs in living rooms all over the world. Parents wiped away tears during quiet movie endings. Her presence echoed in the ordinary moments, the ones that matter most. But her influence went far beyond movie screens. She mentored others quietly, lifted people up without making a big show of it, and used her voice, both when she had it and after it was gone, to remind people that they mattered. Even in silence, she spoke volumes. She bridged different generations, working with legends like Carol Burnett and Blake Edwards, then lending her voice to new audiences in Shrek and other modern films. Children who first met her as a magical nanny grew up and introduced her to their own children. She never chased after momentary fame. She simply kept showing up with grace and dignity. For all her awards, Oscars, Grammys, and honorary titles, Julie Andrews never measured her worth by these honors. Her legacy lives not in ceremonies but in memory, in music that still plays, and in the people whose lives she touched. She once said that success is very temporary and fleeting, but what she left behind was anything but temporary. Even now, when the spotlight has dimmed and the stage stands still, something of her remains. Not just in memory, not just in films, but in something far more lasting and meaningful. Julie Andrews may no longer stand in the spotlight, but her presence lingers everywhere. In the soft quiet before a song begins, in the first snowfall of winter, in the quiet strength people carry without even knowing why they have it. Her voice, though no longer heard, still sings in the hearts of those who grew up with her, leaned on her strength, and loved her from far away. She wasn't just part of other people's stories. She helped people write their own stories through lullabies, laughter, and lessons in gentleness and grace. Her legacy is not a farewell, it's an echo, a sustained musical note that stretches beyond applause and beyond endings. It continues in every person who chooses kindness, who finds strength in gentleness, and who believes that even in difficult times, there's always something beautiful worth keeping alive.